So let's say you made your charcoal, now what? Well, there are 3 steps that we want to take before applying it to the soil. And if that seems like a lot, trust me, there are people who get way more intense about this process than me. So I'm keeping it pretty simple here by comparison. The steps are crushing, hydrating, and charging. The main thing that we've discovered is that with charcoal's internal surface area, the capacity to store nutrients and house microorganisms is immense. Charcoal is both extraordinarily porous and hungry for ions with which to bind. In other words, it soaks up nutrients and holds onto them while housing microbes. This process is called adsorption, and it works similar kind of to how a magnet attaches itself to a metal object. So charcoal adsorbs nutrients, retaining them inside its porous structure. Incidentally, it also absorbs water. Absorption being when a substance soaks up a solution to fill its internal volume. So step 1 in preparing your biochar is crushing it. And you can find every opinion under the sun about the exact size the charcoal needs to be crushed in order to be maximally effective. I don't think it needs to be particularly small, but I also typically avoid putting chunks of it in my garden. So depending on what you're using it for exactly, you probably want to just try to crush it up into pieces that are smaller than 1/2 inch in diameter and definitely not powder. Step 2 is hydration. After the initial dousing, I like to give my charcoal an additional soak. If there are any potential residues that were left on there, they get washed out, and so that I move the charcoal in the direction of becoming absorbent. And you can see this chunk of freshly made charcoal just floats on the surface of the water, whereas this stuff, after soaking it for a few weeks, doesn't float anymore. And this is actually the case with most soil amendments I've observed. If compost, for instance, dries out a bit, it takes a while for it to be able to soak up water again. But once it's had enough time to soak it up, it stops beading off, and it actually helps hold a lot of moisture. Same with charcoal. So there you go, give it a soak. A bucket of charcoal will absorb the water, and you can fill it up again and let it soak it up more and drain out whatever remains, and then we can move on to step 3. If you've got a compost bin or tumbler, that is going to be a great home for your charcoal to sit and soak up nutrients and microbes. And it's basically just going to magnify the benefits, the effect of that compost itself. Charcoal is a carbon material, so I like to layer it into my compost heaps whenever I add a nitrogen-rich material like bokashi food waste or lawn clippings or manure. Just a thin layer 5 or 6 times throughout the pile is going to do the trick. And then, of course, when you go to flip and mix your pile, the charcoal is going to get mixed up and get to soak up all the goodies in there. And then you can just use your compost as you normally would in your garden.